Hello, my name is Maddie, and I just finished, just like 11 hours ago, finished the reading rush. And this is my first time participating, and I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I did get a little bit behind in the middle there, but I made it up at the end and ended with 7 books, which is really exciting. I read, I want to say 2,700 pages, and I did complete all 7 challenges. So I'm really proud of myself, and I think I did a really good job. And so I'm going to wrap this up today while also explaining that I could have read the entire Harry Potter series in 7 days. Now I know that that might sound like crazy. I realized this last night. I was like, shoot, I could have read the entire Harry Potter series for this challenge, but it's fine, it's fine. I'm going to go in order of the books that I read, not in order the way the challenges are on the website, just because it helps me to go from Monday to Sunday. The first challenge is to read a book with purple on the cover. And look, purple. This book has purple on it, right? Well, I didn't read this book, I read it. I chose Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This book is about a girl named Spensa, and Spensa's father was killed in a battle 10 years before this book takes place, and in this battle he was branded as a coward because he was killed while trying to run from the fight. Spensa doesn't believe this. She thinks that that's sort of like a government conspiracy. She doesn't really know why, she just doesn't believe that her father is a coward. She doesn't think that that's true. The beginning of this book is Spensa trying to get into flight school when literally every single obstacle is in her path. Basically the government, just as they said her father is a coward, they believe that she's a coward because she is his daughter. It's basically her trying to go against the odds, beat the system. She makes some friends along the way, people who help her, people who don't help her. And she discovers a lot more about herself and about this flight school than she thought was possible. I really enjoyed this book. I don't usually reach for sci-fi, so it was surprising to me to pick this up for my very first book, but I was like, look at all the purple, so we're gonna go with it. We're gonna go with it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I put it on my GOODREADS, so if I didn't give it 5 out of 5 stars, it'll be on my GOODREADS, and I didn't put why, so it's fine. One thing I did really enjoy is sort of how immersed we get in the flight school aspects of it, because a lot of times when it's a school that sounds that complex, an author won't let the reader into that side of it. The author will usually just push the character development, the plot forward. So getting to learn about all of the different techniques they were learning, all of the lessons they had to understand, and seeing the author be completely brutal to the characters was heartbreaking, but also I think very realistic, and it gave the story a different sort of realistic feel that I didn't think that I would get in this book. So I really enjoyed it, and I'm really happy that I read it. The second challenge was read a book in one spot the entire time. And this is a pretty easy challenge to complete. You can literally choose any book. But for this challenge, you could have chosen Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling, because literally the shortest book, I'm pretty sure it's the shortest book in the entire series. Also, it's just good. Boom. But instead of reading Chamber of Secrets, I read Aurora Rising by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I wasn't going to pick up this book at all. It wasn't on my TBR at all. Not that I really had one, but of the thoughts about the books that I was going to read, this one wasn't one of them. But after finishing Skyward, I wanted some more sci-fi, so this book seemed to be the right book to pick up. Because it's not it's 400 something pages, but it's not super long, so I feel like it was a good choice. This book is kind of hard to explain because there's no real main character. That's why it's kind of hard to explain. So this girl named Aurora, and she was cryogenically frozen and supposed to be sent to another planet to recolonize it, but instead her spaceship got stuck in space, and everyone else on the ship died except for her. Cut to a flight school. Are we seeing a theme? Cut to a flight school called the Aurora Legion. Aurora Legion is basically the UN, and they have this branch called Aurora Academy where they train new squads, which is what they call sort of a group of people who all run a spaceship. Anyway, they train squads to go out and do the UN things that they're supposed to do. And one of the soon-to-be graduates of this flight school is Tyler, and he can't sleep the night before his graduation, so he decides to go out in a ship to just sort of roam around, shake off some of his nerves, and he finds Aurora's ship where everyone else is dead, but she's the only one still alive, and she's still cryogenically frozen. So he pulls her out, he takes her back to his ship and back to Aurora Academy, and literally from there everything starts going wrong. I thought this book was really beautiful. I really enjoyed all of the character relationships because we get to see from most of the perspective of all the squad. So there's Tyler, Scarlet, Kat, Zila, Gideon, and no, the one that reminds me of Rowan. Cal. That's what they call him. His name's longer than that, but Cal. So we get to see sort of from each person's perspective, and I think that the characters like shifted really seamlessly. Definitely my two favorite characters were Cal and Zila. That sounds kind of like an unpopular opinion. I haven't seen a lot of other reviews about this book, but like personally I think they were my favorite, and I know for some other people they might not have been, especially since we don't really see Zila a lot. I gave it like a 4.5, but you know Goodreads doesn't do like half stars, so I either gave it a 4 or a 5, but it's like a 4.5 because I really enjoyed it and I thought it was good and I'm excited for the next book, but it didn't have that like oomph to put it up to the next level, you know? Now we're basically just almost going in order. So the next challenge is read an author's first book, and for this you could have read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling or Philosopher's Stone, depending on what country you're in. I have both, so we know this is J.K. Rowling's first book and it's beautiful and it's magic and I love it. But instead of reading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, I read We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faizal. Hafsa Faizal. I'm gonna say that that's how you pronounce her name. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I probably am. We're gonna go with that for now. We Hunt the Flame is about a girl named Zafira, and she lives in this kingdom that's controlled by a sultan, but each section of the kingdom has like a caliph. And in her section of the kingdom, women aren't really given a good role. Women aren't allowed to own businesses. Women aren't allowed to run homes, all that sort of stuff. When her father dies and her house only has women in it, also her town is sort of like starving because they live in a very cold part of the country. She begins to go in this forest called the R's, which is famous for making people go insane and killing them, but she's able to go in and come out unscathed, so she goes in and she hunts for her town. She ends up on a mission to retrieve this lost book to bring back magic to her kingdom, which was there like 100 years ago, but you know, became lost for reasons that they sort of can guess on but don't really know. And on this journey, she encounters the prince of their whole period, not just the caliph, but the sultan's son. And he's known as the Prince of Death because he's basically the sultan's assassin. He was basically sent to kill her, but she doesn't know that. Yes, it's one of those books. So they are on this journey to find this magic book while dealing with feelings for each other and feelings of duty towards other people, their towns, you know, their families. And I thought it was done really beautifully. I think, yeah, 5 out of 5 stars from me. It was just amazing to see a character who's only lived in one place her entire life, which happens a lot, but like, she's really very sheltered, and so she goes out into the world, she gets to see all these new things, and seeing her like disbelief, her sense of like self-change, it was amazing. The author executed this book beautifully, and I cannot wait for the sequel. It's gonna be amazing. And that was during the week when like my reading got a little off schedule. The first 2 books I was like finished in a day, boom. And then last Wednesday when I read We Hunt the Flame, I had to work and was hanging out with a friend, so I only got like halfway through it on Wednesday and then had to finish the other half on Thursday, which was kind of a struggle. And trust me, made me kind of nervous because it was like, it's only Wednesday and I'm already failing. The next prompt was read a book with a non-human main character. For this, you could have read, surprise, surprise, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, because look, a wizard. He's not a muggle. Non-human. Instead of reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, I read Sight Witch by Susan Dennard because I was desperate and it's tiny. But also I've read the first 2 books in the series, but I hadn't read this book, and there's another book out that I still haven't read, and I feel like I was getting really behind, but at the same time, like, this is such an immersive fantasy world that, like, every time I read a new installment, I feel like I have to reread the whole series because it's really hard to keep all of the stuff straight in my brain when I don't really have a refresher. This book, fortunately, is like it's not really it's like a companion novel, so it's important to the story, obviously, but it's not set in the same time as the other books in the series. It's set a couple years before, I think like 2 or 3 years before. Technically, you don't have to have read the other books to read this book, although it might be a little confusing. Basically, this is about a girl named Ryber, and Ryber, well, there's this, sort of like a nunnery, but it's not a nunnery because they're not nuns, but they're only women, and they live in this sort of like secluded compound on a mountain where they're all trained to be sight witches, which are people who can sort of see in the future and try to prophesize, and they all have different, like, varying levels of ability. And when Ryber was 4 years old, she found this nunnery, even though it has, like, protection wards around it to confuse people. You know how, like, around the Hogwarts castle, when muggles come upon it, it's like looks like an abandoned building, and they all get confused and they want to leave? It's kind of like that. So it's like a similar sort of ward. But she got there when she was only 4 years old, in the winter, in the cold. So everyone thought that she was going to be an amazing sight witch. But instead of becoming an amazing sight witch, she continues to not be called into the mountain to have her full powers regained. She is very upset about it because she thinks that she is ready, and she's been there for so long when other people have been called up when they were far younger with far less experience, but she's willing to wait when the rest of basically everyone else in her compound is called into the mountain. And the mountain is like where they go to get their powers. Everyone is very confused because people are only supposed to be called one at a time, but there's like 17 people going at once, and until basically Ryber is the only one left, and she is tasked with going back into the mountain to save her sisters, even though she wasn't called into there in the first place. It's really cool too because it's like written in like a diary format, so we get it like she's writing it from afterwards, but there's also like little diagrams, like there's this little map here, and then there's like little pictures, like she draws pictures of people, which I think is really cool, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the story. I think it was cool to see it in multiple mediums. I either gave this a 4 or 5 stars on GOODREADS, I don't remember. Again, it was like a 4.5, 4 out of 5. It was really good, and I really appreciated the background because this character, Ryber, is talked about in the other books, but she isn't a main character, so we don't know a lot about her. So I really liked getting some of the background for her character, and it makes me all the more excited to read the next book and reread the first 2 books because I want to see her in this new light as opposed to the way we saw her before, which I think will be really exciting. For a bookumentary last year, I could have done Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix because I meant to reread all of these books last year and I didn't, so I literally could have picked any of them, but we're gonna go with this one. Even though it's like the fattest and literally would have taken me like honestly an entire week to read, but it's fine. We're gonna go with it. But instead of reading Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, I read Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Ngan. I'm gonna say that it's Ngan, even if I don't know that's how it's said. I'm sorry. This book is about a girl named Lee, lives in this like small town far away from the central city. I don't really think it's really said where they are, but they're in Asia, like Mongolia, China area. And she lives in this sort of small town where nothing really happens. She's just like ordinary girl, except for she is part of the paper caste, which means entirely human as opposed to a half demon caste or a full demon caste. And one of them, they have specific names. Hold on, let me check to see if it's in the front so I can remember. So she's part of the paper caste, which is fully human, whereas there's the steel caste, which is like part human and part demon features, and then the moon caste, where they're basically full demon. And even though she's only part of the paper caste and she only really has paper blood going for generations, she has these golden eyes that are very unusual for someone part of the paper caste. Basically, this makes her sort of like a target. And so there's this general who's fallen out of the king's favor, and so he comes and takes her away, makes her a paper girl. Basically, there's 8 girls chosen to be the king's concubines for a year. They're all paper caste. Basically, this general forces her to come to the palace to become one of the king's concubines. And at first she's like, okay, I'm not going at all. And of course, the entire time she's like, I don't want to go. But then she realizes there was like a raid on her town and her mother was kind of taken or killed. She doesn't really know what happened to her mother. And she really wants to know. Although she really doesn't want to go to the king's palace to become a paper girl, she wants to know what happens to her mother. So she kind of thinks of it as like a spy mission. She's gonna go see what happened to her mother. I loved this book. 5 out of 5 stars. I can't wait for the next one. Girls of Shadow and Storm, I believe it's called. I think it's gonna be absolutely amazing, and it was kind of crazy to see all of the character development and the way that the story progressed in this book, because I think that a lot of elements were just sort of brought up unexpectedly, but not in a bad way. So I'm really excited to see how the next book does it too. And I'm excited to see where the plot goes, because obviously with the ending of this book we can tell that there is going to be another book, but at the same time, I'm not sure how the next book is going to go. So yeah. Oh yeah, and this one was a struggle because I finished Sight Witch on time and it was fine, and then the next day, yeah, Sight Witch I finished on Thursday after finishing We Hunt the Flame, because Sight Witch was short, so I finished it really fast. And then this book I was reading on Friday, and I only read like 50 pages, and I meant to finish on Friday. So that was a struggle. And it's because I sort of got a little burnt out. I was working on some college details, I was hanging out with a friend, and so it just got a little crazy in there. I do think that this book was really excellent. I'm glad that I got it done in time, I guess. Okay. The next prompt I completed was read a book and then watch the book-to-movie adaptation, and for this I could have chosen Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling, because once again, could have chosen any book from the Harry Potter series because they're all book-to-movie adaptations. But I haven't seen this one in a while and I would enjoy rewatching it. So there is a reason, kind of, that I picked this one. But instead of reading that book, I read Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jessie Andrews. And I absolutely flew through this book. Like I said, I finished Girls of Paper and Fire a day later than I meant to, so I was trying to catch up with this book. I read about the first 20 to 50 pages on Saturday after I finished Girls of Paper and Fire, and flew through it on Sunday morning, literally finished it at 11 a.m. because I got so immersed in the story. When stories are written in this way, so it's written in first person, he has breaks to talk about different social commentary and stuff, and I really enjoy stories like that. I think they're really engaging, so I really enjoyed the way this book is written. So this book is about a kid named Greg, and Greg has tried for so long to just be a nobody at school. He's sort of friends with everybody, but not really friends with anybody. And then one of the girls he was friends with when he was younger gets leukemia, and his mom is still friends with her mom. So his mom is kind of forcing him to hang out with her because she wants her son to be more friendly towards her, especially because she's dying. So Greg kind of has to break out of his I'm kind of friends with everybody but not really friends with anybody status, and he really starts befriending her and talking to her about his problems. He really grows as a character throughout the book. I think that he really begins to understand life a little more, which I think is hard for a lot of young adults, obviously. That's why we read stuff like this. I think I gave this a 4 or 5 out of 5 stars. It really impacted me because I related with a lot of the struggles that Greg had, but I don't know, the experience seemed a little unreal from my experiences with high school and stuff. I felt maybe it's just where I went to high school, it probably is, but it did seem like there was a little bit of suspension of disbelief in there because I didn't feel like it was really portrayed in a way that really talks the way that high school really is. I don't know. Maybe it was for this author and that's why I'm not relating to it, because this book is set in Pittsburgh and I'm definitely not in Pittsburgh. And finally, the last prompt was read a book with 5 or more words in the title. And for this prompt, you could have chosen, once again, any of the books, but Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which is 6 words, so boom. That's all I have to say. But instead of reading Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, I read They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I've been wanting to read this book basically since it came out. I bought it last year, the year before, and tried to read it as soon as I bought it and just wasn't in the right mood because based on the title and this beautiful cover art, you have to be kind of in the right mood to read this book, because if you're really not, it can put you in a weird mindset. Basically, this book is about a world that's basically the same as ours, except for there's this thing called the Death Cast, and the Death Cast is basically they send a message to the person at the beginning of the day when they're going to die. So they could be called at 12 p.m. and then get killed at 12:08. They could be called at 12 a.m. and then be killed at 12:08. They could be called at 1 a.m. and still not killed till 10 p.m. Basically, they know that they're going to die. So the 2 main characters, Mateo and Rufus, both go onto this website called Last Friends, and Last Friends is basically a way for you to connect with someone who's also dying, and you can just spend your last day together, basically. So Mateo and Rufus connect because of this app, and they sort of go on a last day adventure. They say goodbye to people. All sorts of crazy, amazing things happen. And also they deal a little bit with their own sexuality, even though it's their last day, which I thought was incredible. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars, 100%. This is the only book. Some of the books came close, but this is the only book that made me cry. I loved it. It was amazing. This made me really interested to pick up Adam Silvera's other books, because I've read What If It's Us, which he co-wrote. This is the first book that I've read that's entirely his own. So this made me really excited to pick up some of his other books. And I'm really, really excited for his new book, Infinity Sun, which is coming out in January. Like, you don't even know how excited I am. Especially after reading this book, because I know now that I love his writing style even more than I thought I did. I do want to say a little bit trigger warnings for like suicide and just sort of spirals, like death spirals, but I think that it was beautifully, beautifully written and beautifully executed and warms my heart, even though it's so sad. And I just want to go and reread it right now. Okay. So yeah, that was all the books that I read during the reading rush. I haven't fully committed to this book, but my next read is probably going to be Internment by Samira Ahmed. I'm on page 4 right now, so I don't really have a lot of thoughts, but I'm excited to continue. And I think this is going to be a really great read. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you participated, let me know what your favorite book was or your least favorite book. Just let me know what you read. I'm excited to hear it. And I'm excited to participate in more readathons in the future. And I decided not to vlog in this one, but who knows, maybe I'll vlog in the next one. Let me know also if you think that would be something you would enjoy. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!